And in some cases, the right remedy even improved symptoms that the person had that they forgot to even mention to me that I didn't even know were an issue. And this demonstrates the holistic nature of the health improvements that the right homeopathic remedy can bring about. A lot of times I have people who tell me, they'll say, and I can't really put my finger on it, but I just feel better. I just feel more like myself. And this kind of return to a more natural and healthy state is a great sign that the person is on a very deep acting and healing homeopathic remedy. Hey guys, welcome back to Whole Family Homeopathy. My name is Dr. Andrew Chambers. I am a naturopathic doctor who uses homeopathy with all of my clients. This is part 5 of my Homeopathy 101 intro series. If you missed any of the videos so far, go back and check them out because this video will build on previous ones. But I think for prospective clients, who are suffering from disease, whether it's an acute sickness or chronic sickness, this video is going to be probably one of the most important ones I've done so far. Now, today's video, the focus is on what actually happens in the body when we take the right homeopathic remedy. I'm going to talk about this kind of through two different lenses. First lens will be through a more scientific, kind of technical lens, to give a bit of background, kind of biologically speaking, with what's going on in this healing process. And then the second lens will be through the real life examples of 4 people I've worked with over the years, and try to give you guys a little bit more concrete understanding of what does this kind of stuff look like in practice and how can it actually impact you in your own personal lives. So let's dive in. So let's delve into some of the science of this. Whereas conventional medications work on the body by tweaking a small specific part of the body, such as an enzyme or a neurotransmitter or a hormone or a microbe, and hoping that this small tweak will result in kind of systemic improvements in health and in the disease, homeopathic remedies actually work on the underlying regulatory mechanisms within our body as a whole, which is what is primarily responsible for maintaining the disease and what are primarily responsible for healing to occur. Now, when I say the underlying regulatory mechanisms, what I'm referring to are all of the processes in our body which are always operating both in health and in disease to keep us alive. Now, some examples of this would be breathing, digestion, heart rate, nervous system activity, immune system functioning, and the list really goes on and on. All of these operate under the same principle, which in biology is also known as homeostasis. So, if we get sick, our body brings all of these systems online in order to try to restore balance in the system, in order to heal the sickness and restore homeostasis. Now, this reaction of the body is also known as the healing response. And if we cut ourselves and that cut heals spontaneously, or we hit ourselves against something and form a bruise which goes on to heal spontaneously, or if our body kind of catches us up on sleep after missing a few nights in a row, or if we come down with an acute illness and spontaneously recover from that, all of those are examples of that healing response being activated and being successful in restoring homeostasis, also known as restoring health. But if we've developed a chronic disease, this means that at some point in the past, that healing response, although active, was not successful in fully restoring ourselves to health or homeostasis, and that is the development of a chronic sickness. Now, when this happens, the regulatory system more or less adapts to the new state of affairs with the goal of minimizing further damage from the disease process. However, it's a bit of a double-edged sword because what this means is that it stops so actively trying to reverse and heal the disease, and so the symptoms we're dealing with tend to persist and they tend to become kind of locked in as the new regular state of our body. Now, it's important to know that the entire complexity of all of the processes within this large regulatory system inside of our body are still not fully elucidated by modern science. The reason for this is that our entire homeostatic system is made up of hundreds and even thousands of individual biochemical processes and pathways. Each one of these has numerous enzymes, numerous receptors, numerous proteins, neurotransmitters, hormones, even genes that go into dictating how it functions. And so it's just too complex for us to know all of the details yet. However, each one of those systems tends to be a possible target for a drug intervention. And you can kind of get a sense from this description why conventional medications are so fraught with side effects, because you tweak one thing in this whole interrelated system and it's impossible to fully predict what other effects that will have on the body. So this is the reason why different people with the exact same disease diagnosis may experience very different symptoms, and why different people with the same disease diagnosis can respond so differently even to the same medication. And ultimately, it's the reason why a one-size-fits-all approach to healing just simply doesn't work for the majority of people. So where does the homeopathic remedy come into play in this model? In essence, the hypothesis is that the right homeopathic remedy is able to reactivate and stimulate our regulatory mechanisms in order to complete the healing response that it has been unable to do successfully so far. This process is what results in improvements in symptoms, health, and well-being. Okay, so now that we have a lot of that science out of the way, let's get into some concrete examples so that you guys can see a little more clearly what actually happens in this process. My first example is a lady I worked with who was in her mid-60s, and she came to me having had the flu about 6 months ago and recovered fully from it, but ever since then has had really intense gastrointestinal symptoms, so kind of gut health problems. Now, these symptoms for her have been really severe abdominal pain, really severe abdominal bloating, to the point where even just a few bites of food would make her kind of so bloated that it would be impossible to continue eating. And this has been basically constant throughout the day, and it's so bad it's to the point where she's kind of unintentionally lost weight from not being able to eat enough, and a big decrease in energy as a result of that too. And in addition to these symptoms, she's developed some pretty intense health anxiety, as well as overall kind of loss in self-confidence in her abilities just to carry out the day-to-day tasks of life. After taking her case and analyzing it, the homeopathic remedy I recommended for her was lycopodium. And within 4 weeks, she reported a 50% improvement in the gastrointestinal symptoms. She was able to basically have really good reduction in the bloating, and as a result of that was able to eat much more of a normal amount of food at each meal, which had also resulted in a pretty big improvement in energy levels. And in addition to the physical improvement, she had within this 4-week period basically total elimination of the health anxiety, which had just been ongoing, and a large restoral of her self-confidence again. And she stayed on this remedy for several months, and by the end of about 6 months or so, had a total healing of the gut, so total elimination of all the gastrointestinal symptoms, and had basically restored her health and was back to her old self. So my next example was a lady I worked with who came to me in her mid-40s and had been dealing with very long-standing depression. And the depression kind of centered on two things. One was a lot of guilt over some of her past actions, as well as a lot of worry and sadness about her son's kind of situation in life, which he had been struggling for years. And this depression for her really manifested as just kind of lots of crying episodes. Basically once a day she would have a really intense sadness episode, and in addition to that she just felt a lot of despair. So after taking her case and analyzing it, the homeopathic remedy I recommended for her was pulsatilla, and within about 4 weeks on the remedy she actually had about a 70% improvement in the depression symptoms, and had gone from crying about once every day to only crying once a week over the past month. And in addition to not crying as much or feeling sad as much, she also felt a lot more hope for her son's future. And she stayed on this remedy for several months, and by the end of her time with me, the depression had fully resolved, and she was just feeling very optimistic, very good about her son's state of affairs, which had also improved. And in addition to this, she also had some good improvement in digestive symptoms, which hadn't even been a focus of our initial intake together. So that was a good bonus for her too. My next example is a young male who came to me in his late 20s who had been dealing with long-standing anxiety, so daily anxiety for years, and recently had started having some panic attacks with that about once or twice a week. And in addition to that, had insomnia, which had been something he'd been dealing with since really like an early teenager. After taking his case and analyzing it, the remedy I recommended for him was Arsenicum album. And within the first month of being on that remedy, he had a 75% improvement in the day-to-day anxiety and had no more panic attacks in that 1 month period. And he had about a 50% improvement in the insomnia, although it was still bothersome to him at that point. And he stayed on this remedy for many months, and basically by the end of our time working together, he had no more anxiety, no more panic attacks, and actually a total resolution of the insomnia, and even didn't even need to take natural supplements like melatonin or other herbs for it anymore. And he was able to maintain all of those improvements even after we discontinued the remedy. So my last case example from today is a lady who came to me in her mid-50s who had more or less lifelong depression, but which had worsened significantly since the onset of menopause. And for her, menopause was very challenging. She had the worsening of the depression, which, took her to the point even of not wanting to socialize with friends, kind of wanting to stay at home by herself. And she had really intense hot flashes with the menopause to the point where, every morning it was waking her up, getting her out of bed. And then she would have several more throughout the day, just soaking her clothes, basically. After taking her case and analyzing it, the remedy I chose for her was sepia. And within the first month of being on sepia, she had about a 40% improvement in hot flashes. They had gone from being daily to just a few times a week. And she had about a 25 to 35% improvement in the long-standing depression. She was still feeling pretty depressed, but had at least started reaching out to friends again and being more social. And she stayed on this remedy for about a year, and by the end of that year together, she actually had kind of total elimination of the hot flashes, so no more bothersome heat and sweating symptoms for her. And she had such an improvement in the depression that basically by the end of her time together, she didn't have any depression, and she felt the best she had ever felt in her life that she could remember. And it was even to the point where she had started doing a lot of kind of adventurous and social things with friends that she said she would have never dreamed of doing before, like hot air balloon rides or long road trips with friends, that kind of thing. So these examples demonstrate a few things. Now, first, despite the diversity of health conditions worked with here, depression, anxiety, panic, insomnia, hot flashes, digestive issues, the right homeopathic remedy was able to restore health in each of these cases. Secondly, a unique thing about homeopathy is that improvements do not take months and months and months in order to manifest. On the right remedy, we should see improvement in most cases within 4 weeks. And when I say see improvements in 4 weeks, that means improvements that are notable to the practitioner as well as the client. Now, this doesn't mean that in long-standing disease processes we expect them to be fully reversed within a month and gone. It just means that we should see the beginnings of a very clear trend of improvement in health, and that trend will continue over time as long as we continue to be on the right remedy and make adjustments as necessary. The third point these examples demonstrate is that the right remedy was able to improve health and restore health without producing other bothersome side effects or issues. And in some cases, the right remedy even improved symptoms that the person had that they forgot to even mention to me that I didn't even know were an issue. And this demonstrates the holistic nature of the health improvements that the right homeopathic remedy can bring about. And the fourth point I want to emphasize here is that in addition to the improvements in physical health and the improvements in mental health too, the right homeopathic remedy tends to bring about an improvement in a state of overall well-being that is over and above what just a good supplement or a good vitamin or good nutrient can bring forth. And a lot of times I have people who tell me, they'll say, and I can't really put my finger on it, but I just feel better. I just feel more like myself. And this kind of return to a more natural and healthy state is a great sign that the person is on a very deep acting and healing homeopathic remedy. So in conclusion, what is the effect of the right homeopathic remedy on our body when we take it? The right remedy stimulates our body's regulatory mechanisms and helps us complete the healing response, which it has been unable to do so far. This results in a dramatic reduction in symptoms, as well as a really strong improvement in well-being and a return to a more natural and healthy state. And lastly, homeopathic remedies are able to carry this out without producing other side effects or health complications. So, thanks for watching today's video. I hope you found it informative and helpful. If you did, please leave it a like, as that does help it reach more people. And until next time, take care, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.